to go over some things you can do and some things you shouldn't do when you're trying to highlight an area and you want to bring attention to something in your work. So specifically for our character or our self-portrait that we're creating right now, looking at some examples of maybe some ways we could tackle the background. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write background ideas, thinking about focus. How do we bring the eye, how do we give attention to our character, but still utilize the background and focus on our character without taking away whatever we did in the background being too much or overpowering. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sketch some boxes. So we're going to put something in the box each time. So if you can fit 3 across, that would be great, across. And then 3 underneath. You don't have to be perfect, just lightly sketching them out. Once you have 6 boxes sketched out, if you want to go back with your pencil and re-outline to make your box more defined, you can go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and just leave mine as is. And then let's get started. So I'm going to use my favorite emoji just because it's a circle and it's quick to draw. So if you don't want to use this favorite emoji as your character on your square for each one, then I suggest you pick your favorite emoji. But this will just save us time instead of having to redraw and sketch ourselves as our portrait each time in each box. So I know for this project we're going to make the head, neck, and shoulders. So I'm just going to pretend, getting a little creative here. Make your circle, you can make the neck, and just make your shoulders come all the way down and touch the bottom of your pretend page. This would be our whole page, this box. And we want to make sure that when we're doing our neck and our shoulders, that if we were to draw our head way too far up at the top, and then the neck and then the shoulders bringing it down, it would look really odd. So if I were to draw a head up here and then a neck, and then I have to bring my body all the way down to touch, give you that image, that then our body is way too long. So we want to think about making sure that it's relatively a similar size of how it would match based on the head that we drew. So don't do that for this example. Make sure when you are placing your head inside your paper for your portrait that it is generally in the middle or closer to the page if you aren't doing much of your neck and shoulders. For the sake of this, since we're just working on the background, I'm going to quickly draw though the emoji. So my favorite emoji is this little laughing one. Love it. Use it so much. Okay, so we're going to pretend that this is our portrait. We have detail, we have color added to it, and now we want to figure out how to tackle the background. So one way that you can make your character still stand out but do something to contrast with the background is by picking a Sharpie, and this is applying our line weight that we learned about and just outlining your character, outlining your self-portrait so that it stands out from your background. Now maybe if you're outlining, depending on what cartoon style you picked, maybe you're already outlining all of the parts of your character. So maybe this means you want to go in with a different size of Sharpie. So maybe you do want to apply a thicker line to the outside and then keep your line work on the inside with a small Sharpie. So that makes our portrait stand out. So we just used line weight. And we're going to go ahead and do the same thing for this box. Same thing, meaning pick your favorite emoji, If you're pretending it's their self-portrait, make a neck, make your shoulders. I'm trying to aim for mine to be in the middle of the page based on how I drew. Just doing quick shoulders over and down. Maybe add some lines on that one for my arms. Okay, but again, we're just emojis right now, so it's just for practice. Okay, so you got your favorite emoji drawn, self-portrait. And then another thing that you can do for your background is you could maybe add a shape to focus in on your character or yourself as a self-portrait. So this could look like, I could pick maybe like a box or a rectangle, but I could make it extend. Maybe you want a more simple background. This is a nice effect just to highlight your character. Maybe if you're doing character sketches or original character designs, you might see some people really do have a box that goes all the way around and then you fill it in. That's pretty much this idea, but we're trying to treat this whole square as our canvas, our official portrait. So you could make your shape extend. Maybe you want to add some more in the background, do a really simplified couple of shapes, and then you could use a material to fill in this these boxes or these shapes as well. So at this point, obviously this is just a working sketch, but you would have your character either outlined or have the appropriate colors that you're picking, and then you could go back in and you could apply maybe a pattern or maybe some shading to add focus to you or your drawing in the center. So then your drawing right now, our little emoji self-portrait, stands out because it's contrasted from us filling in the background. And I am turning my pencil at an angle so I can use the full pencil instead of just going back and forth like this where it looks really scribbly. And again, these aren't things that you have to do, these are just some ideas that you could do. So we just used shapes to fill the background. Maybe you want to take this idea and you want to create individual shapes with a pattern. That's actually going to be our next box, is that you can create a pattern, maybe using line or shapes. So a pattern is when you have a design that is repeating elements over and over again. So if you draw I feel like that's, here we go. It's too small, wasn't gonna reach the bottom of the page. So again, as you're drawing your favorite emoji. So then for this, I'm gonna do pattern, and then on the bottom, I'm also gonna give you an example of a pattern not to do. So we're gonna go ahead and do that box too. So I'm gonna go ahead and actually skip to the not to do section. Okay, just a sketch. I keep telling myself that. All right, so in the pattern not to do, I want to show you this one first, because if you decide, oh, I really like circles, or I really like wavy lines, and you pick one and you're like, yes, okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw that in the background. Something to think about when you're doing pattern is not just random, like, oh, wavy line, wavy lines. Yeah, that's a pattern. It's a wavy line all the way down. It's repeating. And it is utilizing the whole square, or the paper in our case. But what we want to think about is making sure we take our time and really designing a pattern that shows our craftsmanship and shows how much effort we're putting into this. So we don't want to just have it look really rushed. So for your pattern, if you are choosing a certain kind of line, think about, again, our mark making that we did and the line weight and quality, and think about how you could design a pattern that maybe shows that you are interested in line because you picked it, or interested in shape because you picked it, and repeat it in an interesting way throughout your background. And this way you give detail to your background. You're not ignoring your self-portrait. The self-portrait is still the focus in the middle of your paper, but you're not leaving it blank. You're utilizing the space to make your picture a little more dynamic. So for this, I'm just creating a pattern with lines, and I'm going to make different thicknesses of lines based on how many rows I'm putting in. And I did not want my lines to match, so you can see that this one's a little bit thicker. It has more rows than this one does, and so on. I'm trying to not have our sketchbook warm up take too long, but I also want to take my time. So the point I'm trying to get across is that with whatever pattern you do choose, make sure that you really think about where you're placing it, what kind of design you're creating, how does this reflect something you're interested in. Remember, we want to think about our background and how it can relate to us as an artist and our personal identity as well. If you want to just make an X through this one, basically just reiterating, let's take our time, let's not rush through things. So this is a not to do. And then, oops, on the shapes, I wanted to show you too, essentially, what not to do as well. So if you want to do this one with me, I would highly suggest that you do. Get it out of your system, it's really fun. Maybe you, let's pretend, let's actually just do an even different shape. Let's have it be like that. All right, and let's say you're using your pencil. Basically, we just don't want to try to get through this as fast as possible and have this be our background. And if you were using Sharpie, we don't want to just like randomly scribble in and then say, okay, I have completed my background. As we looked at some artists who do have a much more of a loose style and in abstraction, there are ways that we can approach this, but if you're doing it really randomly and it does look really rushed, that looks a lot different than what we are looking at to achieve. So just wanted to reiterate on the shape to make sure you're thinking about that and it's not just all over the place. So, all right. And then on this last one, let's have this be your choice. So what's something that you can come up with to make your background unique and interesting? Maybe you have a color sitting by you. Maybe you can make a pattern with different colors. Maybe you want to explore different variations of pattern with line weights, or use shapes and lines, or you have something else in mind. So for this one, I'm leaving it blank. It's your choice for a background, and I want to see what you complete to utilize your background, but also still leave focus on your character emoji in the middle.